Hi friends, in today's video I will show you how I built cross-platform finger painting app in Flutter using Flutter's canvas painting. Particularly in this recipe, I use the custom painter class and I will show you how I did it for the three platforms. So here you have screenshot of the here iPhone, in the middle Android, and this one is in the web. So I will take you on the web first. All right, we are here at the web uh, variant of this finger painting app, and when you open this app, this is a screenshot. This particular app is running in the web platform, and I added it as a part of in my Flutter cookbook app where I add another recipes as well, and this is at the top. So there are two ways to run this example. Either you can run it from this Flutter cookbook app by clicking here to see and clicking here to see the code, and let's go click over here, and this is the interface. So in this recipe we'll be doing two things. One, we will be adding the this work area where we'll be drawing or painting this hut, and we'll be putting a hut, a background picture that we may want to color or we want to add more details to it. And the second thing we'll be doing, adding these toolbar menu items using FAB floating action button here as a menu item. So as you see, these four items are colors. So we are providing only four colors to pick from. This erase button menu item is for resetting our screen. This is for opacity. So opacity is the transparency, like how much transparency of your stroke you want. So to show it right now, this is default. And if I go and choose the minimum opacity, it will be like this. So it becomes more transparent. And the last one is the stroke. So stroke, the minimum, the default is, I set it to 3 points. And this is, we have different values that I did. So if I put the medium, I have a bigger stroke. And let's go back to this. And as you see this, all right, and we can reset it back using this icon. And last but not least, here you see the toggle, this animation. We will be using a plugin that I will show in a bit to add this icon. All right, so I have written a article to write everything in detail about this code recipe. This is the complimentary article which goes with this recipe. And uh, I will show, first I will walk you through using this article, and then I will show you the code in Android Studio right here, which will be very same to what we will discuss here in the article. So I will not be going in all the details in here in this video. If you need more details, you can refer to this article, or you can leave comments under this video if you need any detailed explanation of a particular part that we discuss here. All right, let's get started. So in this video, in recipe, we have two widgets to discuss. One is gesture detector, another is custom paint. So gesture detector plugin is for detecting my movements on the on this canvas. So this is what any interaction with this canvas we do using gesture detector widget. And the custom paint is to draw, like what we are doing here, how these things are connecting, how the dot is being printed. So that drawing happens in custom paint. So that's what I say in my goal, a painting area. And the another thing is the action item. This is also important, like the toolbar to take actions on. And as we saw, we did stroke, like the width of this thing. So if I decrease it, it becomes less, and if I say minimum, so it becomes a like line like this. And the opacity, as we discussed, the transparency and the colors. All right, again, you can either run it from the Flutter cookbook that I showed, or you can do it using the going into this code sample, and the link is down there in the uh, below this article at the end, the link to my GitHub source code. So what you can do, the file has this main function, so you can run this file by standalone by clicking on it and saying on an Android Studio and running this file. Or if you choose to run through the Flutter cookbook, then I would recommend commenting this line on the void main if you're running this sample on web app. For some reason, web app doesn't like these separate main methods, main entries as well. It expects only one entry, that too in the main dot dot. So for that reason, you may want to comment it for web platform. So now we will start with writing a stateful widget. Stateful widget makes sense because we uh, we will be dealing with a lot of changing states. So it makes sense to do the creating a stateful widget. And now my stateful widget has two parts to it. So in the home property, one has a body, this thing, and the floating action button is this thing. And now, so first we will start adding the body. So first thing we will add, how will we do the gesture adding? So for gesture detector, we will use the class. The gesture detector class is right here as a flutter, is a widget. So it's a widget that detects gestures. You can read more about it here. And here, how I had used it in here, it's explained. Let's go into it. So in the gesture detector widget takes a child. So in here, since I have two things, one I have a background and another thing I want to paint on it. So I want to center my image in which is a heart image here in the middle. You can choose another image if you like, but just don't forget to put it into this path and put in the right path. And second thing I want on top of my image is a custom paint, which is where I'm painting all these things. And my custom paint class takes two properties. One is the size. So I put it size infinite because I wanted to take all the space what I have available here. And the second thing is the painter. So the painter is the one which actually does the real painting. So what it does, it takes the points which are being touched here in the gesture detector and it go ahead and paints it. So there is a subclass that we will do in the my painter. So we have to pass a my painter, which is a subclass of custom painter that we will see in a bit. And what it does, it has passes it to the points list property, and point list property is the touch points. So the touch point class is what? This is a first thing is a paint, like what kind of paint you will be doing. So the information like what stroke it is, what's opacity it is, what color it is, the such kind of information. And the points, like what points are being touched, so that it can understand what action needs to be taken, what kind of line or a point needs to be drawn on this canvas. So let's take a look in the my painter class. So my painter class extends, as you can see, custom painter class, which is a inbuilt class in Flutter framework, and it takes the point list, which is the touch points passed here, and another thing it takes is the offset points. So let's see what these are. So the custom painter class has the paint and the should repaint methods that we have to override here. So before we take it in here in the paint, the should repaint is the one which is called when every time the custom painter is rebuilt. Since we are changing the state every time, we want it to be rebuilt all the time. So we go ahead and pass the true always. Now the paint where the real painting happens. So what happens, it takes the points list and it checks if these 2 points are adjacent or not. So if I touch it here and go here, so it checks if they're adjacent or not. If it's adjacent, then it draws a line. So that's what it's doing here. And it draws a line. If it's a points list 1 is not null and second is not null, the next to it. So that means I drew a line like this. Then it draw a line. Otherwise, what it does, it sees like, okay, my one point is here and there's a detached movement here. So it considers as a point. So it add it in a offset points list, and it make it points for that. So it says canvas.draw points, and it gives that points. You can choose what kind of point you want it to be, an offset point, and it paints it, the point. So this is what to the my painter class. And now how it does detects the gesture. So let's clear this one. So in gesture detector, it has three properties, the gesture detector widget. One is the on pan start property. So as it says, this is here is the official definition here, which says a pointer has contacted the screen with a primary button and has begun to move. So this is where like I'm starting. So this is where this is being called, this property. And what it uses it is something called render box widget. So which you use to get the global position of the screen, like where my point is. And also it takes the paint object. So it takes these things, the stroke cap, like what kind of stroke cap it is, like is so here in this case I have defaulted to the round, so I want it to be the round. And is color, like what color and with what opacity, like how much transparent it is, that we do it here. So in this one, opacity I put it 1 by default, that we will can change using this menu item. And the selected color by default is I got it the regular default color as black. And so that's the all three information it needs to be passed to it. So the second, that's the one, and the another is on pen update property. So on update property is for when you're starting moving, when you have in the motion and that my screen is getting updated. So these variants movements goes into here in this method, in this property on pen update is details. And of course, as you can see, it's been called under set state because we want our widget to be rebuilt to see what has been changed. If we don't have in set state, sorry, then these you cannot see these drawing to be updated. So that's why we have to call it in set state. And again, the same thing. So we send information about what part of the screen is touched and the stroke and the paint information. And in the last, the on pen end, so it's like, okay, I'm making a line and I stopped here. So that means I'm not adding any points to it. So I pass null to it. So this concludes the first part, or painting on the canvas. Now the second is the adding the action items. So as we saw, there's a brush stroke picker, which is this, opacity, resetting, and the red, green, pink, and blue colors. So now how we add the FAB, or floating action button menu. So the first thing is we add it into the our scaffold, are using floating action button property. And in the pub.spec YAML, we have to add this plugin which gives this nice smooth animation. As you can see, this nice beautifully this animation is coming. So you can see the color changes from blue to cyan, and the menu item changed from menu to cross. Let's one more time. This is the menu and the blue, and it changes to cyan and the cross. So as you can see here, let's go the implementation here. So in floating action button, you can see the start animation color is blue, which is this, and the end animation is cyan, and the animated icon data is menu close. So this is a menu close icon. All right, so now let's see how we can add the menu, the adding the buttons, like these all buttons to it. So in here, we use a property called a fab buttons property, and on this method we will create fab options. Actually should be fab options here because there are so many options, so this method name could be renamed better. And now in fab options option method, we will be creating a list of widgets that will return the list of all floating action buttons, one for each. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here. So let's see, the first one is paint stroke, and icon is brush, and stroke. And when you press it, so what happens? It's the minimum is 0 and the maximum it go up to 50. So that's the thickest and this is the thinnest. Minimum is 0, but I think I put it 1. So in pick underscore pick stroke is the function method I will define later in my code, which will actually deals with creating this alert dialog and choosing these one of these stroke width. And the second thing is, and also it will uh, tells us how to the model or the alert dialog should behave. The same thing we are doing with the opacity as well. As you can see, the min is 0 and the max is 1. So min 0 is like it most transparent and the max 1 is like the least transparent. That means it's dark line. And the method is opacity. It calls method underscore opacity for that. Now the next is for resetting. This is simple. It's just what it does. It just clears all the points here on the screen. And now picking the red color and all these colors is very same. So we are using a method, the reusable method called color menu item, and we pass the color and we pass the tooltip as color. And what we do when the set state comes, we change the colors, we update our selected color here. The same thing we are doing for all these other menu color items. Now take a little deeper look at opacity picker. So let's see what's happening here. So there are three values that we are using here: 0.1, 0.5 and 1. And 0.1 is the minimum, is the most transparent, and this one is not transparent at all. So this one, this is example of 0.1, so we can see here too. So let's see what happens. And if we have thickness this, let's have thickness middle there. So let's try to do this there. So this is how you will have patterns or a straight line. This is one. Okay, and now let's see how it's been opacity method is being implemented. As you can see, it's been implemented in the uh, alert dialog. So let's see this method. So it shows the dialog, and this dialog is uses the barrier decimal property as a true. So that means is if I uh, click outside of it, it will close. It will not block user. And another thing, it uses the clip oval widget. So clip oval make it this nothing nice oval, this icon oval. And I put a flat button inside, which is icon, and I'm using icon opacity and size 24. And on pressed is opacity is like 0.1. So I have this alert dialog has these further 1, 2, 3 flat icons inside. So if I click on it, it pops up with this alert dialog and it creates 3 flat button using different opacity. 0.1 is this one, and 40 is the icon size is bigger, which is 0.5, and size 60 is the bigger icon and which has opacity as 1. And when you click on it, it actually pops the context. So it just goes back to this screen where we are. So now the very similar implementation is for the stroke picker as well. However, we have here 1, 2, 3, 4 icon, the flat buttons on our alert dialog. And as you can see, I put it here in a screenshot. So if I pick the first one, it has this width, second width this, and third width this big. So the first one is represent the 10 points, the second is 30, and the last one biggest is the 50. And now implementing this thing, let's take a quick look for this one as well. And let's click on this one. So if you do the cross, then it will go back to the by default. And let's change our opacity to the thick, that most least transparent. And as you can see, the implementation is very similar, like pick the opacity method. And here you have 4. So first icon is clear. So what clear icon does is right here, it reset it. So the stroke width, it put it 3, not 1. Sorry, I've been telling 1, but it's actually 3 here, which is by default. And second is the middle one, sorry, this one is 10. The this is 30, and the biggest one is this one, 50. So this is 50, this big thick, and sorry, and this one is 3, and this one is 10. So you can choose this. And now the resetting screen, what it does is, as we saw, it just clears the points. And for color picker, what we are doing, we are using something color menu selected item, color menu item. We passing the color, like what kind of icon we want to be built. So to build this icon, what we use clip oval, a container which is 36 by 36, and set the color to it, and we give a padding of 8 so that we can see this nice white gradient around. And if you tap it, so it picks that color, so the color selected changes. There you go, see, color changed. And so that's all was there to this creating this particular app of to finger painting app. And one thing I want to mention it for, it's important it to see, like, so I ran it into the beta channel, and I realized, like, in master channel it was not running, the web version was not running properly. I was getting some compile time issues in running the web version. So make sure if nothing's working, this version I've tested and I developed in this one, on this configuration. And source code is available here, right here. And if you want to get the cookbook, the whole source code, if you want to run the whole Flutter cookbook app, you can go here, which is this recipe is a part of this huge, the big Flutter cookbook app. So now let's quickly dive into the code, which is a very similar right here. So I have um, commented out my run, my main method here, because I'm running as a part of my Flutter cookbook app. And as you can see, there is these are the by default. I have touch point list here, opacity, stroke type, stroke width, and color. Pick stroke, opacity, web option, which we just saw. You can take a look again. And in here, in a scaffold, gesture, and the floating action button, which creates the fab option, which is right here. And the gesture detector is at taking the pen on pen update, on pen start, and on pen end. And the custom paint is taking my painter and points. And first painter is here, which is, if you go custom painter class, this is the custom painter class, which is available inside its built-in class in Flutter system. And this is the paint method where we are redrawing the things. And this is a touch point class to keep track of the points. So as you see, as you saw, like, it's a pretty simple and straightforward to build a app like this to color. Uh, and you can do more things with that, but this is my little contribution to understand this whole thing, like how we can do it. I hope it might you might have found it useful. And if you want me to make more videos about something that you don't understand, please leave the comment below, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.